Okay, I've got an interesting one for you today, and I brought a prop with me. You see this? Why am I holding up a blue cardstock that says Razor on it? You should be able to see that. Well, today's story is about a teenage boy who was in a Bronx gang in the early 1950s, and he gave himself the nickname of Mike Razor. And he would carry this cardstock with him that shows the name Razor on it. Well, not this one. This is a replica I made for the video, but you'll see the one that he carried a little later on in the video. So the question is, why would he do such a thing? Why would he call himself Mike Razor? Why would he even carry a card? Why go through all that trouble? Well, to find the answer to that question, you need to keep watching this video. Leslie was a member of a Bronx gang called the Napoli Street Boys. And this was in the early 1950s. And they actually used razors to cut themselves for initiation ceremonies. Leslie said that they were a social club, but the black jacket wearing Napoli Street Boys acted and looked like just your typical street gang from that time period. Now, Leslie didn't actually go by his own first name. He called himself Mike Razor, and he did this to build up a persona. And he would carry that blue card with him everywhere he would go. And his father said that he did this because he wanted to prove to his friends how dangerous he really was. Razor was extremely self-conscious about his short height. He wore Adler elevator shoes. Now, I had to look this up, but back in the 1940s, elevator shoes were all the rage. And what Adler did is they thickened the soles of their shoes somewhat so it would make somebody who was shorter appear taller. And they are appreciated by the shorter men of that generation. And they had a catchy little slogan that went like this: "Build your ego, amigo." Now, Razor wanted to overcome this deficiency in the height department, and he did this by working out like a madman. And he got a very impressive set of muscles, and he got some status from these muscles from his friends. But he also got status because he was very aggressive, and he had no problems whatsoever assaulting anybody he wished. Now, with his taller friends, he would take his knife out and he would tell them, with this knife, everything is equal regardless of size. And he did actually make his friends nervous because he was always trying to prove how tough he was, how strong he was, and he wasn't above using a weapon to make his point. So, how did he get to this point? What happened to Razor? It started young. At the age of 9, Leslie started showing extremely violent temper tantrums. His father said that his son felt unwanted, but the thing is, when his parents tried to show him love, he repelled that. And his parents frequently argued about what to do with their son, and it certainly wasn't for lack of trying. Here's an example. When he was 9 years old, Leslie asked for and received 30 growth injections, but none of them worked. When he was 15 years old, his parents borrowed a very large sum of money to get plastic surgery on their son's nose because Leslie felt very sensitive about it. Also, the money was used to straighten his teeth because he felt he didn't look handsome. Leslie's father, who wasn't that much bigger than him, recounted about how hopeless it felt like to him and his wife. And they were at wit's end and they were completely exhausted trying to help their son. For some reason, Leslie had extreme hatred and hostility towards his very own parents despite all their efforts. He also had extreme hostility and resentment towards his younger brother Edmund. Now, his younger brother Edmund wasn't at all like Razor. He was very gifted musically and he actually got a scholarship to the Juilliard School of Music. But all of this only served to make Razor feel even more inferior, and he hated his brother because of it. And it got so bad that the mother had to protect her younger son to make sure that Razor didn't hurt him. Now, as you can imagine, all of this rage and all of this hatred was going to come out, and it did. On May 28, 1952, Razor was arrested for assault for cutting someone with a piece of sheet metal. He cut him on the right and left thigh, both arms, and the back. The victim was sent to the hospital. In May 1953, a year later, he was arrested again for assault, this time for stabbing a 15-year-old boy on the upper left arm with a switchblade knife, and he too had to be hospitalized. On October 14, 1954, he was arrested yet again in front of Taft High School for slashing a teenager with a razor blade, living up to his nickname. He inflicted wounds on his victim on the neck, chest, and left arm. 8 sutures were required to close the victim's wounds. He didn't suffer a more serious injury only because the razor blade actually broke during the attack. Leslie's justification for all these weapons was because I joined a club and they needed me. Do you ever have this where you have someone like Razor who's so extremely violent that you have a difficult time trying to find the good in that person? To be honest with you, that's me. But even the worst people have skills and things that they're good at, and Razor was no exception. Turns out that he was actually pretty good at singing and he was fairly intelligent. And this is really surprising. He was a stamp collector, but he was pretty savvy at it. He actually ran a successful mail order business for stamp collecting where he netted at least $10 a week. Now, for his crimes, Leslie was sent away to a reformatory. I haven't listed all the crimes in this video, but he served his entire sentence there, which is very unusual. Most people hit parole and they get a chance to prove themselves on the outside, but Leslie didn't. And the reason for this was because he was so badly behaved on the inside. And he had many, many discipline infractions. And I'm going to go through some of them with you. Here's an example. One time he stole acid from the sheet metal shop and dispersed it to the other prisoners. Another time, much more serious situation, he actually built a bomb and blew it up inside the reformatory. What he did is we took 20 to 30 matches and he either rubbed them or wrapped them in cellophane, then he held a big match to it. And the heat made an explosion about the sound of a .38 caliber pistol shot. Now, he blew this bomb up right in the prison yard, and as you can imagine, it got everybody's attention amongst the prison population. Everyone stopped moving, everyone stopped talking, and all activity virtually ceased as everybody's attention was drawn to Razor. Now, he had many more discipline infractions, and I want to leave you with one that is quite disturbing and it shows the turmoil that is going on inside Razor's mind. What happened was he approached an inmate and he placed both his thumbs on the throat of the inmate, applying pressure to the arteries that supplied blood to the brain. The purpose of this was to weaken the victim and render him unconscious. If this didn't work, he would tell the inmate to jump up and down several times, thus interfering with the circulation of blood to the brain. Finally, he would entangle his arms around the chest of the victim and he would squeeze. The inmate lapsed into unconsciousness for a short period, and Razor actually did this to 2 inmates. It's true, this video has been kind of dark. And so, as we come to the very end of this story, I want to leave off on a high point. And I want to talk about Edmund. That's Razor's little brother. You remember the one that he hated so much because he felt so inferior to him? Well, Edmund lived a very full life and he was very successful at what he did. And I want to go over some of the high points of his life. I don't want to discuss everything or this will be too long. So I'm just going to read directly off my sheet so I don't miss anything. Edmund attended the High School for Music and Art in Manhattan, and as you recall, he followed this up by a scholarship to the Juilliard School of Music, and it was there that he got a bachelor's and master's degree. In 1962, he got a Fulbright fellowship which allowed him to study in Germany. He later earned his Doctor of Musical Arts degree in performance and music theory from the University of Cincinnati. Edmund had a career as a concert organist, a teacher, and a composer. He wrote articles for the American Organist, and for 14 years he directed a seminar for organists called Bach Week. You can actually buy his sheet music on the internet today if you wish. Edmund was loved and admired by students and co-workers alike. His favorite expression was, "When the student is ready, the teacher will appear." He was a kind and gracious host to friends and visitors and was an incredible gourmet chef. His children were the many cats that he kept over the years. In 2003, Edmund retired and he had 2 homes, one in Washington, D.C. and the other in Vermont. In 2014, sadly, he began a battle with dementia and he passed away in 2017. In his obituary, it said that he was predeceased by his partner, his parents, and his older brother Razor, although of course it didn't use Razor's nickname, it used his real name. It didn't say when Razor died, but Edmund was loved and cherished to the very end by, it seems like, everyone who came into contact with him. We can only hope that the two brothers reconciled and that in the end, Razor did see how much his parents really loved him. Well, thank you very much for watching this video. I appreciate your time, and I hope you have a great day.